It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso. It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the Box. We continue along here on game week for the LSU Tigers. Counting you down, opening day, of course, is this Friday versus VMI at 2 p.m. at Alex Box Stadium. Tigers get set to defend National Championship number 7 in search of National Championship number 8. And that'll be a theme of today's show as well. So not only today do we finally take our deep dive look at LSU's 2024 schedule. We'll go through the tough spots, the stretches that maybe it lightens up a little bit. We will give a record prediction. Probably won't do as well as we did last year, but we'll give it a go for that. And then we're going to look at College World Series odds. We're going to look at odds for the Golden Spikes Award because LSU is all over all of those, as you might expect, both in current players and future players who are committed to the program. So we're going to get into all of that here today and fired up to do it with all of you. Tomorrow on the show and, of course, Thursday on the show. I haven't decided which day I want to do which yet, but that's when we'll give our final overview on the pitching staff, a final overview on the offense. We'll give projected rotation for you. We'll give a projected lineup for you. We'll give all of that stuff in the coming days. So today we'll do schedule and record prediction and look at odds for awards, College World Series, things of that nature. Excuse me. And then on Friday, well, we'll be previewing VMI and Central Arkansas. Dove in a little bit on VMI already, not so much on Central Arkansas. But by Friday, we will have everything you need to know on both of those teams, so make sure you're here for that. And again, remember, episodes dropping at 6 a.m. right now for Musso at the Box, and hopefully throughout the entire season. We haven't had a schedule change yet, so that's the goal, and so far it's going great, and that'll be paramount for a 2 p.m. start Friday and really kind of throughout the early part of the regular season because they have a lot of 2 p.m. starts, does LSU. All right. Got to remind you, as always, get subscribed to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for the great feedback. We've hit over 1,000 subscribers. Actually did that this past weekend. So it was a little over a week of the channel being live that it took to get there. I'm very grateful for that. That's very big for the channel and makes a lot of people where I work very happy. That was a milestone that they wanted hit before the regular season started, and we got there. So thank you very much to all of you for doing that. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. You'll get notified every time a episode posts. That's important because Monday morning, the episode posted, but the scheduled tweet that I send out with it didn't for some reason. But if you were subscribed to YouTube or subscribed on the podcast app, you would have gotten the notification right there. You don't need the tweet. So it is important to do that, and it's greatly appreciated. Anywhere you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, we're there. Greatly appreciated. Musso at the Box. Let's get cranking. LSU's 2024 schedule. Now, we have talked an awful lot about this team and where they might compare. Where they might compare. What teams, what past LSU teams they might compare to when looking at defending champions. And when doing this preview last season, we did kind of the same thing in a sense. Obviously not to, past defending champion teams, but just past LSU teams that came in with a lot of hype. All right. I mean, we went through like 2017, we went through 2013. Those are the two I remember most out of that episode. We went through 2015, I think. We went through a lot of 2009, maybe. A lot of teams, definitely 2009. They were number one in the country preseason, like last year's team. And kind of compared them to each and where they maybe fell and used that as kind of a gauge for schedule and where and how they might perform over the schedule. I will tell you this right off the jump. I even said it on that episode. I felt like I had a great feel for the team last year. part of the reason I watched them so much throughout the fall and the preseason. I haven't watched this team as much. I've still watched them plenty. You all know we're here recapping scrimmages and everything over the entire weekend. If I can't make it out there, I do my best to find out what made news, what are the headlines out of it. There's that portion to it, but also the schedule just sets up way differently for LSU this year too. Last year, it was a much more manageable schedule. You had like the Arkansas and the Tennessee series back to back there, but other than that, it was really kind of spaced out for you, and you drew Kentucky and you drew Georgia and teams like that out of the East. That is not the case this year in SEC play. If you're looking at LSU's schedule, it's tougher, but I also think it could be a lot worse, and I'll explain what I mean when we get into that, when we get in a little deeper into that. I do want to throw out a couple notes on the pre-conference. We're not going to dive super deep into LSU's pre-conference schedule because it's just not there's just not a lot to write home about. There's some really nice teams. Like I told you, I've dove in a little bit on VMI already. VMI can hit the cover off the baseball. I think it's something like 7 or 8 guys out of their starting lineup from last year, which hit the cover off the baseball, are back. So it'll be a really good test early for LSU's pitchers in regards to that. But I don't think anyone really expects LSU to go out there and lay an egg against VMI. We don't expect it. It doesn't mean it can't happen. Of course it can. VMI went into Starkville last season in the opening weekend and took a game off Mississippi State. State walked it was in between 13 and 17 batters. I think it was actually 17 batters that they walked in that game. And VMI, a veteran lineup, you give them the opportunity there, they're going to take advantage. So it's not to say that, it's going to be a complete cakewalk, but because they do have so much back. But again, it's VMI. Stony Brook comes to the box this year. That's fun. It's clearly not the same Stony Brook that it was in 2012, but it's a matchup where LSU fans are going to see that on the schedule and be like, oh yeah, those guys, we remember them plenty, and you should. It was a horrible weekend, but that's not really going to move the needle. Where you really get the needle moving is when they go to the Astros Foundation Classic in Minute Maid Park, and they'll have that top 10, top 15 matchup against Texas. And I would imagine you'll see LeBaron Johnson in that game for Texas. He's back for the Longhorns this year and is a very, you saw him last year in that midweek game. And he was awesome that night when he dueled with Thatcher Hurd. So again, that guy he's back and he's electric from the mound. So again, I haven't dove super deep into Texas. I'm just surmising right now that's probably who you would see, and that's a more than capable arm. And the last time those two teams met in that event, there were about 24,000 people in Minute Maid Park. It was an absolutely electric atmosphere for college baseball. It was a great scene for college baseball. It was an Omaha vibe in February is actually when that happened, or early March, one of the two. That is going to be great. If you've never made the trip, I advise you strongly, go make the trip this year, especially for that. And then, look, you'll play ULL in that event, and you'll play Texas State. The headline game is Texas. Sure, ULL will be fun just because of the rivalry between the two programs, but LSU that's a game LSU should win. You get past Texas there, you probably have a great chance to sweep through that. I do want to highlight Xavier, and I know we highlighted that again on an earlier podcast. I think it actually might have been the one we were talking about transfers, because we were talking about Justin Lohr. So that's a fun angle of that, right? He'll face his old team. The thing is, though, and again, that's March 8th through the 10th, so I haven't dove deep on Xavier yet, but that's a team that made a regional final last year. They made it to the final of the Nashville Regional, eliminated Vanderbilt en route to that, where they would eventually lose to Oregon, who was a super regional team and got victimized by Oral Roberts last year up in Eugene. You might remember that. So I don't know everything that Xavier has back, but that's clearly a very good program that's coming to the box that's on your schedule. Who a regional final team last year, and you have 2 games with North Dakota State, and that closes out your pre-conference, and then you get into the conference slate, which really matters. So again, of course, your games matter, but moving the needle wise, a trip to Starkville does a lot more for people than a 2-game set with North Dakota State on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night. Although, LSU doesn't play them very often, so I guess that is kind of cool. So let's talk about the SEC slate. And I said right off the top of the show that it's more difficult, I think, than it was last season. Mainly because of what you draw out of the East, but it could be worse. And here's what I mean from that. When you look at what LSU draws out of the East, Florida, okay, they played for a national championship last year. Multiple polls have them as the highest ranked SEC team going into the season. Like D1 Baseball has them number 2 in the country. I believe Perfect Game had them number 2 in the country. So everyone expects a lot from Florida. Brandon Neely is back. Obviously, Jack Caglione is back. I mean, they're loaded from a pitching standpoint. They have a standout freshman on the mound whose name escapes me currently. I'm sorry. I will figure that out, and we will fix that for future episodes. But he's really good. The lineup, hello. They had Colby Shelton from Alabama, who had 20-plus home runs as a freshman. You have Cade Curlin is back for Florida, who had 20 home runs as a freshman. Florida's very good. All right, that is so you draw them. Many people think they can win the league and definitely the East. Vanderbilt has everyone back in their starting rotation. Carter Holton, the lefty at the front there. Devin Futrell. A heavy left-handed rotation and very, very good. A lot of people believe, the top 10 team preseason, that this will resemble a Vanderbilt team that we are very accustomed to seeing under Tim Corbin, which is crazy to say. Vanderbilt was very good last year. They were the 6th, the national seed overall. They got bounced in their own regional. They ran into Oregon and Xavier, and that's not easy. As we previously discussed, those teams were very good. But you were without, I know you were without Carter Holton in that regional. I think they actually might have been out without Devin Futrell too. Or maybe he was the only guy out of the rotation that they had. It was something like that. So you've got all 3 of their starters back. That's going to be a very formidable team, and mainly because of what's on the mound. You have to go to Tennessee. The Vols are going to be very good. Drew Beam's going to be at the front of that rotation now. Obviously, Chase Burns left and went to Wake Forest. We know that, but you still got Drew Beam. And if you remember, going through that pitching staff last year, and LSU beat them 4 times, which was incredibly impressive because it was, for my money, I know Wake Forest was dominant. For my money, Tennessee had the best pitching staff in the country. It was just major leaguer after major leaguer. A good bit of those guys are back, again, with Drew Beam at the front of that rotation. Tony Vitello, I know many people here aren't very fond of him, but he has recruited at a top-tier level in Knoxville, specifically on the mound, and that's going to really help anchor them. And where they struggled a little bit offensively, those guys are back and a year older, have been through the wars, expect big things from Tennessee. So you have one more team that you drew, and it's Missouri. Okay, it's Missouri. It is on the road up in Como, but it's in April. The weather really should kind of be moved out of there by then. That shouldn't be a big problem. LSU, remember a couple years ago when LSU went to Missouri to play a series early in SEC play and it was snowing? You shouldn't have that problem going up to Como this year, which is always a good thing. And Missouri, I don't expect them to be very good, if we're being just quite honest. I can go pull up the projected order of finish right here for the SEC. Give me 1 second. I will grab that. Here we go. Projected order of finish for the Southeastern Conference. And I look at Missouri. They are picked to finish last in the Eastern Division. So you do get that, right? But on top of that, Florida, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. When you compare to last year, you had Kentucky, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee. But you got Tennessee at home, which was massive. South Carolina, yes, they ended up being better than I think many thought. But going into the year, you looked at that and said, okay, it's not the same clearly this year. But here's why I say it could be worse. It could be worse because historically, and especially in more recent history, the SEC West has been such a juggernaut that when you saw Florida, Tennessee, or Florida Vanderbilt specifically, now third Tennessee in that mix, pop up on your schedule as your draw, you had a murderer's row if you played in the SEC West, because you had Arkansas, you had both Mississippi schools, and both of them are very down. And that's really Texas A&M going to be a really nice program this year. Slosh is going to really get that thing rolling in year 3. Obviously went to Omaha year 1, takes the step back last year. They had to replace a lot from that Omaha team and missed a little bit in the portal on some guys, but you look at a guy like Jace Laviolette, who was awesome as a freshman last year. He's obviously back for his sophomore year. They have also a standout freshman that made it to campus that's going to play in the field and hit in the middle of that lineup and be dominant for Texas A&M there. So they're going to be a really nice program, but it's Alabama. They have to replace an awful lot, especially in that lineup. And as we mentioned, they lost Colby Shelton to Florida. I think if Alabama doesn't have the coaching change and the way that went down, you maybe don't have as many guys hit the portal as you did, but they lose Luke Holman to LSU. They lose Cade Woods, who led their team in appearances out of the bullpen, to LSU. Previously mentioned Colby Shelton to Florida. So that's 3 really big pieces of that team last year that were set to be back that aren't. So while I think Alabama can still be very good, it's still a tough situation, and they're maybe not what they could have been coming off a super regional appearance last year. That was a really good Alabama team last year. They didn't just get hot. They were old and veteran, and they took really mature at-bats and had a deep enough staff on the mound to overcome injuries at the front of their rotation to Ben Hess and Grayson Hitt. So, and part of that was Luke Holman. So, you look at them at Auburn. Man, Auburn's always better than you think they're going to be, but they're not. They 1 to 40, 1 to 35, they don't have the talent that an LSU or an Arkansas does. They just not in the Western Division. It's not to say they can't go out there and beat you, because hell, they beat LSU last year, right? And it was a really rough weekend for the Tigers on the Plains after Paul Skeen's outing. But if I'm gonna look at Auburn, they're not. They're not a preseason top 10 team or anything like that. So having the Mississippi schools really be down has weakened the SEC West. And I'm not expecting this giant jump from Ole Miss or Mississippi State this year. Ole Miss was picked to finish 6th in the West. Mississippi State was picked to finish last in the West. I'm also going to not make my prediction that I did last year on this episode where I said State's picked to finish last in the West. I think they're going to be a little bit better than that, because they weren't better than that. And I don't know how. I mean, I don't think they're really going to be able to pitch it very well. You've got the big bat in the lineup, and his name is Hunter Hines. I believe is still at State. Let me make sure he didn't transfer. Did I miss that? Hold on. I'm sorry. I know this is terrible. Terrible radio, terrible podcasting. Let's see. Their website's moving really slow, gang. Like really, really slow. Kellum Clark is still at Ole Miss. My gosh, son, graduate. He has been there forever. They have Cade Smith back, who was their Friday night guy and was very, very good. Luke Hancock's back in that lineup. I'm looking here. A lot of familiar names. That's for sure. For State in the lineup from last year, but not expecting them to. Dakota Jordan. He's got to be a. What? He's not a freshman? Dakota Jordan, he was on the team last year. That's... Hold on one second. That's because I was looking at last year's roster. Oops. How's that work, guys? You like that? What is going on with hailstate.com? My God, fix your website, guys. It's just no players are available. It's game week. They don't have a roster posted? That's ridiculous. All right, anyway, so that's probably why I didn't pop up there. I don't remember him transferring. Let's see. Again, I'm sorry. This is really, really bad. Yeah, he's there. He's going to play first base. So you have that big bat in the middle of that lineup, but again, I don't expect them to really pitch that well. Ignore everything I said. I was looking at the wrong roster. That's my bad. I didn't double check. I saw 2024 selected and just thought, okay, here we go. Because why wouldn't you have your updated roster posted on game week? So I don't expect. But in fairness, going to Starkville is never easy. Like that's a tough place to play at Dudy Noble, and that's never going to be easy. They came into your house and beat you last year. You should want the revenge. LSU top to bottom, more talented. That's one that you would hope they would get against Mississippi State. But then you enter that stretch, that tough stretch where you're going to play Florida at home, go to Arkansas, play Vanderbilt at home, go to Tennessee. That's going to be 4 top 10 teams in a row. 4 top 10 teams in a row to close out your first half of conference play. It is incredibly front-loaded. And what I will tell you right now, getting Florida at home, that's big. That's massive. That's going to be a huge weekend at the Box. Sellouts, all 3 days, and the place is going to be jumping. National championship rematch. I'm sure those games will be on national TV. Let's see, the Friday night games on SEC Network. The Sunday games on SEC Network as well. So 2 of them are going to be on national TV. There's going to be a lot of fanfare around that series, and getting that one at home is going to be massive for LSU. Now, having to turn right around and go to Arkansas is going to be really tough. I'm extremely high on Arkansas this year. I think Arkansas has their best chance under Dave Van Horn to finally go get a national championship. I really, really do believe that. Hagen Smith is back at the front of the rotation. He's going to be the best pitcher in the SEC. Should win SEC Pitcher of the Year. From the left side, he's up to 100 miles per hour now. No thank you. I don't need any of that in my life. That is stupid that guy who was already filthy dominant at 94, 93, 94 is now, sitting more 97, 99 and bumping 100 miles per hour. No, thank you. He didn't need to get better in that regard. He was already awesome. So you have that at the front of your rotation. Brady Tigert is back healthy. He'll be in that rotation for Arkansas. And the slider is one of the filthiest, if not the filthiest pitch in college baseball. They went and got a starting pitcher from Texas Tech. They went and got a catcher from Texas Tech. We know what type of program that is. They have a prized freshman arm themselves in Dietz. He's not going to be ready for the start of the season. They expect him kind of towards the middle of SEC play, probably right around the time they're coming to Baton Rouge. That'll be the 3rd week of conference play, so maybe not quite ready there, but could be when else just to go up to Fayetteville. Peyton Stovall at second base, obviously a great player, should pass along. He's going to miss the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season. He broke his foot. So, again, he should be maybe coming back a little bit around that time where LSU has to go up there. It's going to be a very, very tough series for the Tigers up there. Vanderbilt comes here, and again, same thing with Florida. That's huge that you're getting that at home. That's going to be another one. All 2 out of the 3 games on national TV. There's going to be a lot of fanfare around that series. Getting it at home is massive. And then you have to go up to Tennessee. And all 3 of those are on national TV. So, again, you know what that's going to be. That's an incredibly difficult place to play. 1, the fans are rowdy. 2, the stadium is about the size of a high school field. We all know that. Tennessee plays very, very well there. What I would tell you, split those series. If you can win the series at home and you lose the series on the road, that's fine. If you split those, you're going to be ecstatic with how you came out of that stretch. What you can't do is get swept. You have to at least win 1 out of all of those, and it'd be really nice if you won both of the home series. You got to at least split them, but you can't get swept. That's the paramount through that. You do that, you win, depending on how that shakes out, you win that series against State, you have positioned yourself to be somewhere 9-6, maybe even 8-7, coming out of that stretch, going into a weaker back half of your schedule, and that's a good place to be. 9-6 would feel incredible. And that's kind of more towards where I lean, because I think they can split the home series and the road series in that stretch. And maybe you steal one. Who knows? Injuries happen and all of that. But that's really what you want to do if you're LSU. And then you come out and you got the back half of SEC play. You go to Missouri. LSU should be able to make up some ground there. We told you they're picked to finish last in the West, in the East. You should make up ground there. Then you come home, you face Auburn. We went through Auburn spiel, man. They're a solid ball club. Getting them at home is big. Every time LSU faces Auburn, LSU should win that series. They just should. It hadn't always gone that way. As a matter of fact, Auburn's kind of had the upper hand. They've won at least the last 2 that I know of. So, they're coming in with a lot of confidence. And Auburn always seems to start to get hot there in late April, early May, and that's when you're catching them, April 26th through 28th. So, foul that away. Texas A&M, again, they're going to be a solid ball club, but you get that series at home, and national TV games, like that should be a really, really great atmosphere. You go to Alabama, that's not a hard place to play. I mean, nobody looks at Sewell Thomas or the Joe, as they call it, and quiver in their boots about having to go play there. So you have that. So if Alabama's sputtering by that point in May and you have to go play in that stadium, that's one you can really make hay in as well. I truly believe that. And then you wrap it up with Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, I mean, look, there's they just had Xavier Rivas go down with Tommy John. He's out for the year. He was going to be in their starting rotation. Man, the lefty's name, he missed all of last year, but he pitched against LSU, and his name is escaping me. Oh, I cannot think of his name. Why can't I think of his name? Oh, man. Somebody drop it in the comments. I cannot think of his name, but they don't know what he's going to really be able to give them. What is that kid's name? Oh, that is really going to bug me. So, and you get it at home. That's one you should, I go through that, and A&M's the only series on there that I'm like, man, LSU, they could potentially run into a buzzsaw at that point. That's the only one. Auburn might beat you. They're not a buzzsaw. Bama, but LSU should win and conceivably could and conceivably should win, is what I'm trying to say, their last 5 series. So you get through that early stretch, don't get swept, split your home, split your away, and you're looking really good if you're LSU for the back half of SEC play, and you can get to 18, maybe 19 wins in conference play, and you're getting, depending on how you come out of that stretch, that's going to be so key to where your record ends up. And with that, you're hosting all the way through. You got a top 8, you're hosting all the way through. So that's great. For an overall record prediction for you, I'll go back to kind of what I said off the top of the show there. I'm not I don't feel like I have as great of a feel on the team as I did last year. Last year we came out here and said 44-12 for their record. They ended up 43-12. We missed it by one damn game, and that's because South Carolina, the third South Carolina game got canceled. We could have nailed the record right on. But anyway, we were right there. I'm not expecting to be that close with a prediction this year. But what I will say is, when we go back to what we talked about previously on the show, on previous episodes, I should say, where we know which teams they maybe compare favorably to, I go back to 2001, a defending champion team. You brought in some really good freshman arms, like a Lane Mess to pay there. You think of a Cam Johnson here, potentially something like that. You have the starting pitching. LSU had some starting pitching back from that year. You had guys take the next step. You had some veterans. You had a mix of veterans and newcomers on that team. It took them a little longer to get going than I think many would have liked. They lost their opening game. You got into SEC play. Let's see. I'm looking at them. Looking at them right here. When LSU got into SEC play, they were 12-4. So it took them a little bit longer to get going. They got off to a 3-2 start through their first 5 games of the season, and it took them maybe a little longer to get going. They started 1-2 in conference play. They went and lost a series at Georgia, but they turned it on, man. They turned it on towards the end of that season, and I'm trying to find their regular season record. Forgive me. Forgive me. That's your SEC tournament. They finished 37-18-1 in the regular season. I think that's very much something you could see from LSU this year. I think LSU's probably about 38 wins in the regular season this season. That's the number I settled on, and to be brutally honest with you, I just did that very live. I did not know their record off the top of my head, but 37-18-1 was the 0-1 team. I think that's somewhere where LSU maybe falls in this season, is right around there. So I will go Let's see. I guess that'd be 38-18 is what I'm predicting for LSU in the regular season this year, which is still very, very good. It's going to take them a little bit to find their footing. On paper, yes, they look very good, but we've talked about the lineup. That's going to have to come together a little bit. The starting rotation, you're going to have to get that figured out. Why you feel like you have multiple guys who can fill that out, and you're going to have 3 solid arms. You still have to find your best combination there. You have to figure out what you're going to do in the bullpen. All that has to come together. So it might take them a little longer to maybe get going this year, whether that be in the pre-conference. I really don't think it's going to be, but whether that be in the pre-conference or right when you kind of get into SEC play, I think there's a range there for a few more losses built in for LSU this year. But when they figure it out, they have a chance to be absolute gangbusters. And that's where we will shift our focus now to our odds and our awards, and then we'll wrap things up today here on Musso at the Box. So let's start with the College World Series odds. LSU right now, looking at DraftKings, has the second best odds to win the College World Series. That's at plus 750. You look at Florida's right, but Wake Forest is your favorite, by the way, at plus 700, so 7-1 for the Demon Deacons. Florida is at plus 900, and Arkansas is plus 1,000 at 10-1. Then you have Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and there's A&M at 20-1. So all those teams that we just went through, except Wake Forest, are all on LSU's schedule this year. Also, mind you, that tells you what you need to know. There's Alabama at 35-1. So, I mean, there's plenty of teams there throughout. But LSU sitting at 750 shows you odds makers look at them and say, okay, yeah, it's easy to put the defending champions that high, but when you look at everything they've come back with, they have a chance to make a run and win this thing again. Not just make a run to win it, they are the co-favorites with Wake Forest to at least make the College World Series over at DraftKings with minus odds, minus 105. So odds makers in Vegas are clearly expecting LSU to be back in Omaha, as am I. I think that could be another prediction I'll give you. So 18-19 SEC wins, 38-18 in the regular season, and LSU season will end in Omaha. Will it end in a dog pile? I don't know, but I think their season ends in Omaha. So one of the heavy favorites, that might not surprise you. Everyone's going to want to talk about the Golden Spikes Award. LSU saw their second ever winner of that award last year in Dylan Cruz. That was an awesome moment, one of my favorite moments of the season, because I had never seen that before. I did not see Ben McDonald win the Golden Spikes Award in 1989. And I think it's very similar to like Joe Burrow's Heisman. Obviously, the gap in years wasn't as great, but there is a large section of LSU baseball fans who, didn't remember seeing Ben McDonald win the Golden Spikes, or weren't alive to see Ben McDonald win the Golden Spikes, and that was a first for them. They had seen national championships, they had seen SEC titles, they just had never seen that. So that was a really cool moment, and everybody wants to see LSU do it again. See LSU player do it again. Well, when you look at the Golden Spikes Award watch list, there is plenty of flavor for LSU on it. Luke Holman is on it for LSU, and Tommy White is on it for LSU. What I will also throw out to you is we often always refer to the Golden Spikes Award as the Heisman Trophy of college baseball. And it's easy to do that because a college player normally wins it. But what the award is actually for is for the best amateur baseball player in the country. So high school players are eligible for this too. There are 2 high school players on the Golden Spikes Award watch list, and both of them are LSU commits for this cycle. Cam Caminetti out of Arizona, the lefty pitcher, and then, yeah, you guessed it, Connor Griffin from Jackson Prep in Mississippi. So that's a little bit more LSU flavor for you. And how about that? Again, just shows you the strength of that recruiting class. It's ranked number 1 that LSU is going to have to fight to keep together. The only 2 high school players are LSU signees, I should say, on that. When you look at odds for the Golden Spikes, FanDuel has odds for the Golden Spikes. Jack Caglione is your favorite at plus 250. Tommy White for LSU, if you're wondering where he is at plus 1,300. So 13-1, not bad. Shouldn't surprise anybody if White's going to be in the running for that all year long. And then the second LSU player that's on this is Thatcher Hurd, but he has very long odds, and Thatcher Hurd wasn't even on the watch list. But that also tells you, okay, he's got odds out in Vegas for this. He's not on their, quote unquote watch list. Doesn't mean anything. I'd take the odds over. Watch this. Now it's long odds, 95 plus 9,500, but that at least tells you, okay, they're at least out there at the books paying attention to him. Hagen Smith plus 2,600. That's SEC flavor for you. JJ Weatherholt's a stud from West Virginia. He's got the second best odds. Ethan Petrie, we all remember him from South Carolina coming into his sophomore year. He was sensational last year as a freshman, plus 2,900. So Charlie Condon, who's still at Georgia, but they don't really have much outside of him, is there as well. So, and by the way, I just scrolled and saw this. They have win totals. Does FanDuel, at least for LSU, they have win totals, and they have it set at 39.5. So it's right in line with where we are on our 38. So, I mean, there you go. It's basically, is LSU going to win 40 games or not in the regular season? And I think they'll be right on the precipice of that. So, second best odds to win the national championship as defending champs. Co-favorites just to make it to Omaha with Wake Forest. You have 4 players on the Golden Spikes Watch Award list with ties to LSU, 2 of them actually on this year's team. And you have a guy with the 5th best odds to win the award. So a lot to be excited about as you head in. For All-American honors, I mean, there's been plenty. Tommy White's collected every first team honor that he could. Luke Holman's got a couple honors, All-American, Thatcher Hurd as well. So there's a lot to be excited about with LSU. They've been picked to finish second in the West. I don't hate that at all. I wouldn't surprise me if Arkansas won the league again this year. Like I said, I'm very, very high on Arkansas this season. So, and for what it's worth, Arkansas was picked to win the SEC by the coaches. So LSU will have something to say about it. That's for sure. And that'll all get started coming up here on Friday. So there you go. We'll run through it one more time. 18-19 SEC wins, I think, for LSU. We'll go 38-18 overall on the season. Season ending in Omaha. Whether it's with a dog pile or not, I think the season ends in Omaha. I do not think LSU gets a second consecutive Golden Spikes Award. I think that's probably going to go to Jack Caglione. But we'll see. We'll let the season play out and let it go. That's going to wrap us up for today. Get subscribed up to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. You get notified whenever it drops. Get subscribed to the podcast as well. Follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew. Greatly appreciated. I love all the interaction that we've been getting. It's been a great run so far here early. I'm happy we're finally at game week. Be here tomorrow. I've just decided we are going to look at the LSU offense tomorrow. Give our final preview of the LSU offense, our projected starting lineup and whatnot. That's on tomorrow's Musso at the Box.